everyone, welcome back to the channel. It is your favorite realtor, Dr. Yeti, and I am back with yet another video. Okay, today we're going to be talking about why the home sales have been crashing. If you watched my video about 2 days ago, I made a video about the fact that home prices in Atlanta have been going up. However, the sales have been going down. And one of the things that really caught my attention is the days on market are shorter. The home prices are going up, but the sales are going down, and it's very unusual. And I couldn't even pinpoint what was going on. And today we're going to be reacting to Michael Bordonaro, his video on home sales are crashing at an alarming rate. Let's get to it.
Today I am walking in Santa Venetia, which is a neighborhood in San Rafael, California that's probably one of the most middle-class areas you can find in Marin County, where you can still buy a house for less than $1 million. And I know to a lot of the country that still sounds absurd and ridiculous, but around here, that's pretty hard to come by, especially in an area that's not completely dangerous and overrun with crime. And while we're here, we're gonna talk about all the shifts that are happening in the housing market right now. Like a few weeks ago, I covered the story about how home purchase contracts are falling apart at record numbers. And we just got the most recent update on this. And there seems to be no sign of this trend reversing anytime soon, because more home purchases are still falling through due to an uncertain economy. And this is the perfect example of how this is working right now.
For example, what? If you guys remember, that's what I was saying. I said that the only reason why I think no one is getting into the market, even though home prices are negotiable, even though interest rates have been going down, is because it's an unstable economy. People are losing jobs left and right. They're not really sure where their future is going to be. So they want to make sure that they're good before they get into the housing market. And honestly, by the time you feel comfortable getting to the housing market, many other people are comfortable getting into the housing market. And at that point, it may be a little bit too late. But I mean, it is wise to be very cautious before you do something so big as buying a house.
Well, this woman in Nashville, Tennessee, she was thrilled when she made an offer on a $400,000 house and the offer was accepted. And then 1 month before closing, she got laid off from her job, and her first call was to her real estate agent saying, "We need to pull out of this deal." And it's not like this person wanted to pull out of the deal. It's not like they got cold feet. In fact, they really loved the house and they wanted to buy it. It took years of saving and planning to make this happen, because she's 40 years old. And only just now, at 40 years old, a lot of people are becoming financially able to be in the position to buy a house. And after a lifetime of effort and work, she had to cancel the purchase on a house that she really loved. And also, making an offer on houses and then pulling out at a later date isn't always penalty free, guys. Like, yes, if you're within your contingency periods, then you can get your deposit back. You're not gonna lose your escrow deposit. But say, for example, you already paid for the home inspection and you paid for an appraisal, you might have already spent over $1,000 or $1,500, depending on how much those services cost in your area and the size of the home and everything else. So it's not free to work your way through a real estate transaction and pull out, even if you don't lose your deposit. And losing that extra $1,000 or $1,500 when you lose a job still hurts.
Yeah.
As of the August reading from Redfin, it was about 15% of home purchase contracts were canceled in August. And now that the September numbers are out already, it's about the same. 15% of deals are falling through right now.
Oh, wow.
And a year ago, it was about 13.6%. So these cancellations.
Well, I mean, that's an increase by 2%. I'm not saying that it's okay for people to fall through on deals, but it happens a lot in real estate. Like, it happens a lot. So 15% compared to 13% last year, it's a 2% increase. Yes, it's still an increase, but would I consider that a significant increase? Honestly, I think I can't really tell unless I see statistics, but honestly, I don't really see that much of an increase. fall
continue
throughs.
to rise as the uncertainty does as well.
But there's
These rising
uncertainty,
cancellations
definitely.
are fueled by a host of factors, including the bad economy, but also more buyers are feeling anxious about their job security, and rightfully so.
Yep, and that's exactly what I said. I was like, I don't understand this market. Like, this market right now is weird. It's not the best for buyers, and it's not the best for sellers either. The market is shaky. Home prices are not really moving, but it's not really moving because there really isn't that much movement on the market. Inventory is kind of, in between. Like, it's not really moving either. It went down the previous month, and then in October it went up again, and it's just kind of like, I don't know. This market, I can't really recommend to hurry up and get into the market or not, because with the way the interest rates are looking, right, and the home prices, you can negotiate because homes have been sitting on the market for a lot longer. For a buyer, it's ideal. But then again, if your job isn't stable, you know what I mean? Like, unless you have a business and you know that this business is going to keep going, like, you just never know.
And it's causing people to have cold feet and back out while they're ahead, because if you have a sizable down payment at stake and you have any fears or concerns whatsoever that you might be losing the job, probably not the greatest time to buy. Now, here's a pretty brand new listing that they just listed about a week ago for sale at $995,000. The house was last sold for $859,000 pre-pandemic in 2019. So it's kind of surprising that the list price isn't significantly higher, because you see a lot of sellers price homes $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 easily above what they purchased it for pre-pandemic, but you're not really seeing that here. And that's a pretty good indicator to me that this house is probably priced pretty well. It's a fairly new listing, so it's hard
Also, it's a new listing. Like I tell you guys all the time, you want to get your listing sold, you lower the price, like make it below market value. Now, I will say though, this is significantly lower. If he's saying that over here, pre-pandemic, you can get your house sold for $300,000 more than what you bought it for. Now, this is a huge decrease in what the value of the property is. However, how soon do you want to sell your house? You're making $100,000 profit. You know what I mean? So
say how long it's going to sit on the market. But, in an area like this, guys, you probably have at least 4 adults in a lot of cases living under the same roof, and all of their incomes can be used to qualify for the sale of the property. And, that makes that $6,000 a month mortgage payment become pretty manageable when you have 3 or 4 incomes to throw at it. And also, it doesn't seem like they're being greedy.
It's just like, do I really want to depend on 4 adults to pay for a mortgage? I don't know. Like, okay, I don't understand if it was 2 adults, a husband and a wife, or maybe even 3, like a mom, a dad, and a child, right? Like an adult child. But who's the 4th person gonna be? Like, I don't know. 4 incomes to pay for a mortgage is insane. I'm not gonna lie to you. 4 incomes to pay for a living.
Because if this same house was for sale in Miami and they bought it for $860 in 2019, they'd probably be asking $1.5 million right now. Anyways, besides people being uncertain about the economy and worried about their job security, you also have a situation where a lot of people are just not able to qualify for the loan. Because at these prices, at these interest rates, at these insurance costs, at these rate of property taxes, people don't find out until they've already gone halfway through the transaction sometimes that it takes time to get their financing, that they might not be able to afford it. That's why it's also important to work with a highly skilled mortgage broker that can already get you pre-qualified before you ever make an offer on a house. So that way they've already looked at your income, your tax returns, your credit score in depth, and if basically have already put you through the underwriting process. You as the buyer are qualified to buy. You as the buyer are qualified to buy. So there's no hiccups on your end. Now it just comes down to the underwriting of the property itself. And as long as that property fits within your budget and doesn't have any surprise liens or problems attached to it, then there's a high probability you'll be able to buy that house. But a lot of people kind of just shop around with a budget in mind, or they just get like a Mickey Mouse pre-approval, or they just kind of look at your income and your credit score high level and say, okay, you're good. But once they start digging deeper into your personal details or the property itself, the whole thing goes kaput. And here's something that's great news for home buyers right now, is that not only the fact that more people are pulling out of deals, which leaves more opportunity and less competition for somebody who's seriously in the market right now, but also in September, 52% of homes were delisted compared to 1 year ago, according to Realtor.com. And even with that many delistings, we still have the highest level of inventory on the US housing market than we have had in 5 years.
Remember what I said, you guys? That was when, if you guys looked at my video from 2 days ago when I talked about the Atlanta housing market, literally within the last 5 years, we have a range of between 5 and 7 months of inventory this year alone. Any other year, we're looking at, and it's been steadily increasing since 2020. We're looking at like between 1 and 3 months of inventory, and it just kept increasing every single year. This year, it's the highest. We've had a range, the lowest being 5 months of inventory. In the past few months, it's been fluctuating between 6 and 7 months. Last month alone, it was 7 months of inventory. So, wow, I just said 6 and 7 months. Oh, that was interesting. You know, God willing, I get enough views for people to be like, she talking 6, 7 now. But yes, but seriously, that's what it's been. It's been about 6 months or 7 months of inventory that's kind of been fluctuating. Last month, it was 7 months. The month before that, it was 6 months of inventory. So I'm very curious to see what November brings, because November is a very interesting month. We've had the government shutdown. We've had... what else have we had? We had the government shutdown last month, but it's still, you know, going into this month. We've had the food stamps being cut, okay, and a lot of things have been happening to people getting laid off and things like that. So I'm very curious to see how, like, especially it being the holiday season, what November brings.
So everything is moving into your favor and turning this into a buyer's market right now. And that's why I was telling people over the past 3 or 4 years to be patient, because your time will come. And if you've been able to keep up with the cost of living and keep up with inflation, well, homes essentially today are dropping in value when adjusted for inflation. Not only are the nominal prices going down, but homes are no longer keeping up with the pace of inflation like we talked about a few days ago. And some buyers just are not willing to budge right now because of the abundance of choices, especially in places like Florida. Like, here's an example of a deal that fell apart in West Palm Beach, Florida recently. The buyer was under contract for $485,000. Then they had the home inspection that showed some issues, like damaged pipes, for example, that could have been fixed for about $20,000. And the seller was willing to give them a $20,000 credit, but the buyer wanted a $50,000 credit. And I think that's smart. Ultimately, the deal fell apart, right? So the two weren't able to come to an agreement.
Dang.
Seller was unwilling to give that 50 grand, which they're probably going to regret in the next 6 months. And the buyer has probably saved themselves from a huge mistake, because if you're already finding those problems with the inspection, then there's a high probability that when you buy the house, there might be other things that come up. And also, you're taking a tremendous risk right now buying into this very uncertain economy, not knowing what's going to happen next. And so that risk should account for something as well. It hasn't been this risky to buy a house in years, guys, because even when the frenzy was going on and people were paying over asking price and there was all these bidding wars, well, at least people had secure jobs back then.
Yeah.
There were 2 jobs available for every person looking for...
But what makes it risky? That's my question. Like, what makes it risky? Is it risky because of people losing jobs left and right? Or because what? Like, do we think there's going to be a crash coming soon? What makes it risky? That's my question. Like, what makes it risky to buy a house right now? Other than the fact that the government is a little bit wonky, right? Other than that, and other than the fact that interest rates are going down, like, what makes it wonky? Like, what makes it risky? That's what I'm very curious to know.
Job. People were getting huge raises. People were able to work from home and buy in cheaper areas than what their salary was providing. gave them an abundance. Now people are working off of a shortage. Now there's less than one job available for everybody looking for a job, and inflation has finally caught up and has squashed everyone's budget due to the increased cost of living. And because so many sellers haven't caught up to the new market reality and are not pricing homes appropriately in a lot of cases. Hi there. Hello. Hi. Hey, buddy. You want to say hello? How you doing? Bye. See you later. So because a lot of sellers are just unwilling to lower the price or haven't caught up with the new market reality, what's happening is the longer your home sits on the market, then the less desirable it becomes, or the more people wonder, well, what's wrong with this place? Why hasn't it sold? Well, I'll tell you why. In probably more than 90% of instances in this market right now, it's solely because of the price. It's not because there's anything really wrong with the house, because if that house was priced appropriately, it would be gone yesterday.
I tell you guys all the time about price the house right, and you will get the house sold no matter what the market looks like. No matter what the market looks like, you can get the house sold expeditiously, but you have to price it right.
But because so many sellers are still playing catch up with the new market reality, it's still sitting on the market. Now, if sellers,
so many sellers are so like still trying to sell their homes at market value or higher than market value, so they're not getting it sold as quickly as they would like to.
Want to reduce the risk of cancellation, one thing that you can do is you can get a lot of the legwork done up front. You can get a pre-inspection done on your home for the things like the roof, the structure, pest reports, and share all that information with the buyers up front. This is especially common here in the Bay Area. I don't know if they do this in all of California, which is very different than how we do things in Florida. Like when you go to make an offer on a property here in California, they give you all of these inspection reports and disclosures up front that in Florida, you never get any of this stuff until you're already halfway through the transaction, and then you have to kind of make a panicked decision. So that's a really good thing that they do here, and I wish all real estate markets would do that because it's extremely helpful to the buyers. Now, these affordable houses in these middle-class neighborhoods in the Bay Area don't last for long, because this one was listed on September 20th for $910,000, and it went under contract just a month later at the end of October. So this house was probably priced pretty appropriately. They're probably buying it pretty close to the offer price, maybe slightly above or slightly below. And that's what it takes to get a house sold in today's market. You have to be like these people back here, know your market, price it appropriately, and that's how you get the house sold, guys. If they had this house priced at $1.3 million, I guarantee you it'd still be sitting on the market with no offers. But so many sellers are way behind the curve and think that that's still possible. So clearly the real estate agents in this neighborhood are giving their clients some solid advice on where to list at in order to get the house sold in a reasonable amount of time. A month is nothing. That's really good, especially at a time when the real estate market is essentially collapsing and cancellations are at all-time highs and people are afraid to buy. But if you're a seller and you're worried about this, another thing you can do besides some of the upfront legwork is you can get a backup offer. This is something that we did a lot back when I started in real estate, because there were a lot of cancellations back then too, due to a lot of the same uncertainty. And if you have a backup offer, someone who really wants the property but was just a little too late to the table, then that can give you some security, knowing that if the first one doesn't work out, there's somebody else who still wants this place.
Yeah, but like,
and the other thing
how
is this,
often are you gonna get a backup offer? Right? Like, backup offers don't just come like, oh, well, I got 5 other people that like, this is not 2021 where you're gonna be getting like 10 million offers on one property. So I agree with what he's saying, but like realistically.
Yes, sometimes the cancellations actually come from the seller's side of the transaction too, because a lot of sellers, they need to sell their current home in order to buy another one. So if you're a seller and you have your home under contract and the buyer pulls out, well, now you have to pull out on your contract as well as the buyer, because now
that's the current, I'm currently with a buyer / seller, right? They're selling their property to buy another one. And I told them, like, you know, before we start looking for homes, let's just wait a little bit until things settle, and then we can decide to move forward with buying or looking for properties to buy. Like, let's make sure that everything, and trust me, it has happened already where, you know, somebody had pulled out during the due diligence period. So now, you know, they were excited, and then, but thankfully we got another offer, but, you know, and so everything's going great. All glory be to God. But the thing is, like, so many people get so excited, like, oh, we're under contract, things are going okay. So I need to start looking for a home. So getting that emotional attachment. So I don't know.
You can no longer afford to buy that house because the house that you own now isn't going through. So all of this has a big domino effect on the rest of it.
I want to call your attention to an earth-shattering change that's happening in our society that I know you're aware of. AI.
We all know that keeping your personal information private in the age of the internet can me so at me. And we all know that Florida is the ground zero for this housing crash right now. But the stats just continue to amaze me on how fast the situation is deteriorating there. Take a look at this, guys. Nationally, homes are already sitting on the market for 62 days on average right now, which is about the same that it was in 2019 before the pandemic. But in Florida, that number jumps all the way up to 88 days on the market, which is an extra 2 weeks compared to its pre-pandemic count. Right now, on a national basis, the active listing count is only 10% below where it was before the pandemic. So that is very good news for buyers. But if you're a buyer in Florida, it's even better news because now Florida has roughly 23% more listings today than it had in 2019. And even with that dynamic going on, a lot of these sellers still have the nerve to ask 2019 prices. They're just completely unrealistic. Sure, Florida has seen a lot of the home building that has been happening over the past few years, which increases the amount of available inventory. But a lot of the resale listings have picked up as well, guys, because a lot of people who bought in Florida paid way over asking price, and the economy there relies a lot on tourism and travel. And now that a lot of that is starting to slow down, there's been a huge ripple effect across the state of people being affected by it, along with the massive increase in the cost to carry these properties. And so fast forward just 2 or 3 years later, a lot of people who bought can no longer afford to keep their house, whether it's due to property insurance or whether it's due to property taxes or whatever the case may be. And that means if you are in Florida right now, or really any market, but particularly in Florida, you should take a note from how these sellers in this neighborhood right here are handling it. They are pricing their properties right at what they should be selling for, not $40,000 above, and then let's wait and see what kind of offers come in, and then
especially in this market,
we'll lower the price. No, they're skipping all of that nonsense, and they're listing these homes at what they know people around here can afford to pay and what they know the house will sell at. And guess what? They're selling it in just 2 weeks or a month. Buyers have a ton of leverage these days that they didn't have just a couple of years ago, and people need to wake up and understand that. You know, you're not in a situation anymore where you can just put some lipstick on a pig and think no one's going to notice, and they're just going to come in there and offer you 50 grand over asking price. Those days are over. And really the biggest takeaway that I hope sellers have from this video, buyers as well, is you don't set the price, okay? And buyers don't set the price either. Oh, they kind of do. Buyers have a little more control over pricing than sellers do. But ultimately, your house is never worth more than what a buyer is willing to pay for it. And that is all heavily dependent on your local economy and on your local market, and it's completely different for everywhere. And the more you understand that, and the more you research and have done your homework on your local market, well, then the better chances you're going to have at being able to sell and still turn a decent profit. I even recommend people who really want to ensure that their house sells is look at the comps, say like that $900,000 house over here, and list it for $875, guys. I know it's lower. You're taking this little bit of a hit.
Like literally, if you want, depending on how quickly you want to sell your house, I'm talking below market value, sell that thing, especially if you're making profit. If you're going to be making good profit from the sale of your house, literally price it below market. People that are looking at the property, and unfortunately, it is going to skew the market to the point where now everyone else will have to drop the price. Unfortunately, that's just what it is, okay? Unfortunately, that's just what it is. However, that's how the market moves. You can't keep the house at a high price and expect it to stay up there. And so if you want to sell your house quickly in this market, I'm talking price it below market. The people that are looking at homes at the price range that you listed at will look at your house as a steal. Like, oh my goodness, this is such a good price. I need to buy this house now. This is literally sales, right? Like this is marketing, sales and marketing, right? Like you want to look like this is a good deal. So when you put the property on the market for a lower price than market value, people see your house as this is a steal. I need to hop on this right now. And then you get people snatch it up ASAP.
But you're going to generate a tremendous amount of interest, and who knows, you could still get 2 or 3 interested buyers who might bid the price up a little bit, up to what it should be, around $900,000 mark. And not only are you still getting the value of the house that it should be selling for, but also you're creating a tremendous amount of interest up front, which ensures a quick and favorable sale for you. But one thing that buyers need to be on the lookout for, kind of a buyer beware thing, is look out for houses that have a frequent sales history. Houses that have traded hands many times over the past few years. This can be a big red flag or warning sign for you. And it kind of depends on the property. Like for example, if you're looking at a 1-bedroom condo in a building that has, 600 units, then it might not be so uncommon to see units change hands a lot, because a 1-bedroom condo is kind of built for the single life, right? Somebody who just wants to own something for a couple years instead of rent, then they sell and move on. So that might not be as much of a red flag versus a house in a neighborhood like this that's in a flood zone, okay? And might have had flood damage in the past, or has some kind of structural issue. Homes that change hands too frequently can often indicate underlying maintenance issues, problems with the plumbing, problems with the roof, problems with the foundation, or they might just have poor craftsmanship in general. A lot of these home flips were done very shoddily, and if it's a recently flipped house, somebody might have bought it and then they realize how much lipstick has been put on the pig and it's still just a pig. Well, they might try it and pass it along to you in hopes that the next person won't notice that until it's too late either. And there's other things that can come up too that you might not think about. Like sometimes it's just a weird layout of the home or a design problem, like the rooms are too small, or you can't fit a king-size bed in there, or the way the hallway connects to the bedroom makes it too difficult to move things in and out. Just little things like that you don't really notice until you're living in the house. And it could even be a neighborhood issue, for example, like it can be in a flight path that you didn't know about. There can be a lot more noise or traffic in the area than you might have realized. There could be crime and safety issues where vandalism rates are high or car break-ins are high. And if you didn't research that ahead of time, and then you come out and see your window smashed in the morning, you find that stuff out the hard way. Sometimes it can even boil down to just being in a bad HOA. A lot of people might move into the neighborhood and realize that there's too many people on it.
So he's kind of just why frequent sales might say about a home. But let me know what you guys think, if what he's saying makes sense. I understand like his perspective in terms of, why homes are not selling as much last month, and that was my same sentiment last month. Like I couldn't really understand or pinpoint. The only thing that I could guess and suggest is that potentially it's because the economy is a little shaky right now. People are losing jobs left and right, and people are just not sure if their jobs are going to be stable enough for them to be able to afford a monthly mortgage payment. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Let me know if you think this is a good time for you to buy. Why do you think homes are taking a long time to sell? Why are they not selling as much as it did the previous months? And I love you. And remember, God loves you even more. See you in the next video. Bye.